A very warm good morning to one and all. I, Dr. Afreen Eksambi, welcome you all to this technical session 3 of one-day international conference on Being Me, Understanding Different Dimensions of LGBTQIA+ community. Now, this session is going to be an interactive session wherein we have speakers who will throw insight on medical, psychological, legal, sociological perspective and policy making part of LGBTQIA+ community. To make this session very informative one, we have some renowned personalities from all these different fields. We'll start with our first speaker of the session. So before we start, one important note to all the speakers that already we have started late. So you all will be getting 20 minutes of time for your speech. We'll start with our first speaker of the session 3, Dr. Anand Joshi, who will cover the medical aspects of this. Dr. Anand Joshi has completed his MBBS from Mumbai University. He has completed his MS in General Surgery and Diplomat of National Board in Plastic Surgery. Apart from medical qualification, he has also completed his LLB from Mumbai University. Dr. Anand Joshi has published research papers in European Journal of Plastic Surgery and British Journal of Plastic Surgery. He has attended and presented papers at various medical conferences in Mumbai, Bangalore, Chennai, etc. Dr. Joshi has affiliations and membership of various associations, to name a few: Associations of Plastic Surgeons of India, Maharashtra Association of Plastic Surgeons, Association of Hair Restoration Surgeons India, etc. Dr. Anand Joshi has been a part of many charitable medical activities at Chiplun, Gujarat, Palghar, and Vashand. Barring his medical achievements, Dr. Anand Joshi is an enthusiastic cricket and football player. He is a nature lover with lots of interest in mountaineering and trekking. He is fascinated by Indian classical music and also shows interest in bird and wildlife photography. He has an inner interest to serve the society by contributing for upliftment of rural India. Over to you, sir. So you can start with your.
A very good morning to all. I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for that introduction. A very good morning to all the speakers there, all the chief guests and chairpersons, and all the audience. I first of all apologize not to be able to be there in person for the conference. I was actually going to be, but I had to reschedule everything and come down here to the US for a conference. Incidentally, this meeting is also on the transgenders in the New York, Mount Sinai Hospital. But now I would be, and thank you for inviting me as a speaker. I'll talk to you about the medical aspects of transgenderism. So, next slide, please. So now the first important thing here, I'm going to start with the basics. Obviously, now let me see. I will try and keep myself in time in 20 minutes, and then we would have an interactive session of at least some question answers, if at all anybody has to ask. We have to first get our concepts clear with what is sex and what is gender identity. See, sex, that is assigned gender, is different from gender identity. Sex is what we are born with. That is, whether when a child is born, it is either a girl or a boy, and that is called assigned gender. And the chromosomal, the genetic chromosomal structure is a female is always with an XX chromosome and a male child is always with an XY chromosome. But gender identity is completely different. Gender is how people interpret and view themselves. A person might identify as a gender they were assigned to at birth, or they may identify differently, and that is what is called transgenderism. Next slide, please. So sex is something we are born with, and gender identity refers to a person's understanding of their gender. So transgender is a term used to describe someone who identifies with a gender that is different from the biological sex. So when it's a male body and the mentally that person is a female, it's transgender. Similarly, when it's a female body and mentally that person is a male minded. That is the second type of transgenderism. I'll come to details later on. Next slide, please. So now we have seen the sex or assigned sex, the gender identity, and there is something also called gender expression, is how people present themselves. People might present themselves as feminine or masculine, or they may be neutral, or they may be a combination, and this may vary. So this is another way of this is the third categorization of gender, that is expression. Next slide, please. Now, also beyond this, we have to understand that transgenderism and sexuality or sexual orientation, these two are certainly different things. We should not confuse between both. Transgenderism is when you are trapped in a different body, that is basically a male trapped in a female body or a female trapped in a male body. And sexual orientation, on the other hand, is it tells us what you are attracted to or romantically attracted to. Like if you are a male, whether you are attracted to a female or whether you are attracted to a male or whether attracted to both the sexes. So that is where we come to the terminology of you know uh, gay or lesbian, or first category is the straight category, and then either it's questionable or asexual. So this is what is called sexual orientation, and it should not be confused with gender identity. Next slide, please. So again, revising, gender identity and sexual orientation are completely different and not to be confused with each other. Next slide, please. Now let us see some definitions. See, LGBTIQ. So we are talking about lesbian and gay. Where now gay are male persons who are attracted to males, and lesbians are females attracted to females. Bisexuals are either males who are attracted to both men and women, and women who are attracted to both men and women again. So this is bisexuality. Now, transgender is specifically a person who is not comfortable in the body that he has anatomically got. This is exactly what is called transgenderism. And cisgender is a person whose gender identity matches their sex at birth. So if I am born as a male and I am a male mentally, it is a cisgender. Similarly, if a female is born as a female body and she is female mentally, then it is cisgender. Next slide, please. Now, there is one more category which is intersex. Now, this is something which I'll come to later. Intersex is uh, a term used for a true hermaphrodite. Now, here basically people are born with sexual characteristics of both sexes because they have a combination of male as well as female hormones. So this is a genetic aberration. Actually, it's a very rare entity. I have not seen one in my practice today, but the chromosomal structure is XXY. That is, there are two X chromosomes and there is a single Y chromosome. Generally, when it's a male, it is a single X chromosome and a single Y chromosome. When it's a normal female, it is a single X chromosome and another X chromosome. Whereas in intersex, there is a combination and we have two X chromosomes and a Y. Then we call it intersex. This is a bit complicated. I'll come to this later on. The next two categories are queer and questioning, where people who suspect they might be LGBT, but they are not yet certain about what they think about themselves. Then we call it Q. And now the last category that has been added is A or A plus, which is called asexual. That is, they are not attracted to any of the sexes. They are asexual. Next slide, please. So what is trans? See, a woman trapped in a male body and a male trapped in a female body. So either it's a trans man or a trans woman. Next slide. Cisgender, again, as we have seen, that individual is comfortable in the body that he has got by birth. Next, please. So we have seen so many terms, that is trans man, trans woman, agender, gender queer, non-binary, person with a trans history, trans experience, transgender, and transsexual. There are so many terminologies. We should not confuse any of them. But see, there is no need to learn all of them. We just have to understand the concepts. And we just have to have an open and compassionate and respectful approach for every individual as his own individuality. there is nothing wrong. It's just a way of thinking about oneself. Next slide, please. Now, I just elaborate on this. I have already told you, intersex is different. It is a true hermaphrodite where it's a sexual aberration, genetic aberration where there is a mixture of both the chromosomes. So the chromosomal combination is X, X, and Y. So there are female characteristics as well as male characteristics. But in spite of having characteristics of both the sexes, some intersex people might be trans or gender diverse, while some intersex people might identify with the gender they have been assigned. So still, even if it's a intersex, they have a different gender identity. They may have a different gender identity. This is to be understood. It cannot be necessarily the same. Next slide, please. So now coming to transgenderism. So MTF and FTM, that is male to female. So when it's a male to female, that is a female trapped in a male body, it's called a trans woman. And when it's a male trapped in a female body, it's a trans man. Now, okay, next slide, please. I'll quickly go through, then come on the concept of transgenderism. There are few causes which have been, all these things are hypotheses and they are not proved yet. But they say that the cause of the transgenderism may start from the womb. Sexual anatomy develops within first 6 weeks after the conception, and the brain either is not exposed to a huge surge of testosterone, that is the male hormone, or it is exposed to a lot of testosterone. This depends on the basically it is independent of one another. So sexual organs form, and then later on the brain is either masculinized or femininized by the presence or absence of the hormones. So basically this is a hypothesis where it says that if it is basically influenced by the male hormones, it is a male mentality. If it is influenced by the female hormones, it can be a female mentality, but it has got nothing to do with the genital structure that is anatomically present. This is a bit confusing, but it's just a hypothesis. Next slide, please. Genetics has also played a role, believed to play a role in transgender, because there are a lot of communities where we have seen that this incidence of transgenderism is very high. So why it is so high in a few communities, that implies that there has to be some genetic implication for this. Next slide, please. Also, it has been observed that brain structures are found to be different in people who are cisgender and who are transgender. So these have been there was a study in 2004 where MRI imaging was done for a lot of people, and then they have found that there have been significant changes in the brain structure, white matter, so which may be another cause of transgenderism. But these are, again, I stress on the fact that these are all hypotheses and not proved. Next slide, please. Now see, basically now where do I come into picture? This is now I'm going to elaborate on this fact. Please try to understand this. I'm a medical consultant. I'm a plastic and reconstructive surgeon. Where do I come into picture? I come into picture only when there is gender identity dysphoria. Now, what do you mean by gender identity dysphoria? This is specifically for transgenders. Now, now let me start from the basics. See, LGBTQIT. Okay, so lesbian and gay. So what is being lesbianism? A female attracted to a female. What is being gay? A male attracted to a male, or it can be bisexuality. Now, the most important fact that you need to understand here is, see, gay people live together in the West. There have been legalized gay marriages. There have been legalized lesbian marriages. But the important fact that you need to know is these people are comfortable with the body that they have. See, a male is a gay. Obviously, his thinking is a female and he's attracted to another male. But at the same time, he is comfortable with the body that he has got. There is no dysphoria of any dysphoria in the sense, see, dysphoria is a disturbance of thinking. This is what the term dysphoria actually means. Now, when it is gender identity dysphoria, for transgender, say, for example, it's a male. Now, it's a born male, but mentality is of a female. And at the same time, when this person is not comfortable about the body that he has got, it turns out to be dysphoria. That is why this term is called gender identity dysphoria. And this is where I, as a medical practitioner, will come into picture. See, not every gay or a lesbian would come to me to change the sex because they are comfortable in the body that they have got. But if there is a gender identity dysphoria and that person is not comfortable with the original body that they have got anatomically, they will obviously come to me for a change. And that is what is called, gender reassignment, which I will come to later. But see, this is, I'm stressing on this fact, and this is very important to understand. Not everybody will come to me belonging to the LGBTIQ category. It is only the transgenders who are dysphoric about their identity. They would come for help and come for a sex change. This is what is gender identity dysphoria. Now, is the next slide, please. A a few years back, basically, there was a debate on whether this is a mental health disorder or not. So why is the term dysphoria? Why it used to be called disorder earlier? That is, it was earlier called gender identity disorder. But now that's this terminology has changed to dysphoria. Why? Because they have proved that this is not a disorder. It is just a discomfort of being in the wrong body. There is nothing abnormal about it. It is a thinking of that individual. So it has to be respected. That is why it is called dysphoria and not a disorder. When you term it as a disorder, it is considered as an abnormality, and that is not right. That is why this dysphoria term has come into picture. So we have to diagnose this condition as a gender identity dysphoria. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is a very important slide. The previous one, please. Previous, yeah. See, this is a very important thing. Now read this very carefully. See, all GIDs are transgenders, but all transgenders are not necessarily GIDs. Do you understand what I am saying here? See, basically, you have to be a transgender, to be a GID. All GIDs are transgenders. They are dysphoric about their own mentality and not being comfortable in the body. But all transgenders need not be GIDs. So that is what I told earlier, that the gay population or the lesbian population, they are very comfortable with the body they are in. That is why they are not GIDs. But only those who are GIDs among the transgenders would come for me for treatment. Next slide, please. Now that is where this transitioning and then the gender reassignment would come into picture. Now what is transitioning? See, they are born as a child, till we have attained our puberty, there are no changes because during the childhood till we attain the puberty, there is no sexuality, there is no attraction to the opposite sex. But once this pubertal spurge occurs, once the hormonal changes start occurring, that is the time when they experience this transgenderism and then they experience this dysphoria. Not everybody would have the dysphoria, mind you well. Not everybody would have this dysphoria. There are only a few who get dysphoric about it, and that is when we term it as a transgenderism with GID. So this transitioning is a very slow process. It starts basically every see is it is different for an every transgender person. This is to be understood. It is unique for every person. This transitioning, some beginning outwardly expressing their preferred gender around people that they know and trust. They often work their way up to the living as their preferred gender by adopting the clothing. Then they change. It's called transvestism and grooming habits of the desired sex. Some may change their name, they may use hormone therapy, and then they would come to be for medical therapies, that is medical reassignment and the surgical gender reassignment later on. So this transitioning is also very important. Next slide, please. So gender reassignment. See, in short term, gender reassignment is change of sex from female to male or male to female, depending on what the transgender desires. Next slide, please. So what is a transformation from male to female? See, basically it starts with the female or hormone replacement therapy. Now a male body has to be turned into a female body. So we obviously need the breast reconstruction, then the body figure contouring operations like liposuctions or hip thigh implants to improvise the figure, that is change the figure from a masculine to a feminine body. Now later on, it's a combination of so many surgeries. Now we have to do facial feminization surgeries for the face to look more feminine. Even the nose plasties, feminizing rhinoplasties. Then come the removal of unwanted hair, beard, mustache, whatever. I mean, whatever unwanted hair on the body that they don't want. Basically, once the female hormone replacement is started, then automatically these changes start occurring. I won't go into the medical details. I'm just telling you as an overview. And then finally, the genital reassignment surgery. This is the most important of all, and basically removal of male sex organs, that is removal of the penis, the removal of testes, and then a vaginal reconstruction. This is the complete transformation from a male to a female body. Similarly, next slide. Now, as we have the male to female transformation, similarly, female to male transformation is also existing. Actually, the incidence of a female to male transgender and a GID is very rare as compared to male to female. This has been an observation among say 100 cases of GID. I would say that 70 to 80% are male to female transgenderism, and remaining 10 to 15% are female to male. So incidence of female to male transformation is anyway lower. But what again starts with the male hormonal replacement. Now in this case, we have to remove the breast or amputate the breast. So removal of the breast, then beard and mustache hair transplants to make them look masculine, forehead hairline advancements, facial masculinization with implants, and then finally the genital reassignment with removal of the female genitals, removal of the female genital organs like hysterectomy, that is removal of the uterus, and then finally a penis or a phallus reconstruction. So this is the complete transformation from a female body to a male body. Next slide, please. Now, coming to the next important aspect, what are the legal prerequisites for gender reassignments? See, everybody who comes to me, I mean, a lot of patients come to me for a transformation and change of sex, but there are certain legal prerequisites. Now, GID is a condition which is obviously, I have mentioned it is called gender identity dysphoria, not a disorder, but this has to be certified essentially by two different independent psychiatrists. It is mandatory. They have to have two certifications from two different psychiatrists, medical legally, then followed by a legal affidavit for gender transformation on a stamp paper from any lawyer or a notary. And essentially, they have to be basically more than 18 years of age. That is an adult. I have no right to operate on a minor. Everybody has to be adult beyond the age of 18 years for any surgery to be considered. So these things are mandatory, and obviously these things are essentially mandatory for all the surgeries which are irreversible. This is now understand the term irreversible. If I do a genital transformation for anybody, there is no way to go back. These are permanent changes which will occur, and they will change the life of the person permanently. That is why these certifications are essential, and we need it. See, all temporary surgeries, for example, breast implant and a breast reconstruction, is a reversible procedure. Whenever a transgender wants to remove the breast implant, they can remove them and get rid of it and go back on track wherever they started from. But this does not happen in irreversible surgical procedures. That is why these certifications are mandatory. Next slide, please. Now, another aspect is legalities of sex change. See, now when these patients look for a transformation from one gender to the other, they are looking at a lot of future implications. That is, complete change of identity, complete change of, it starts from, certification of their, what do you call it? Basically, legal documents like, see, the Aadhaar card, the passport, election card, everything will get changed later on from one gender to the other, including the changed name. So there are a lot of legalities. They cannot do these legalities unless gender reassignment certification is done. And a gender reassignment certification in transgenders can be given by any qualified and plastic or reconstructive surgeon only after a successful genital reconstruction. This term is very important. Unless they undergo a successful genital reconstruction or a reassignment, nobody can be certified as a changed sex. Very important. All other temporary operative procedures without genital reconstruction does not mean certification to the other sex. This is a very important point to be noted. All other procedures don't mandate gender reassignment certification. Only genital reassignment would give the certification. Next slide, please. Now coming to the social aspects, basically now it's an overview. Like, see, I have been working on transgenders and treat them for last almost 20 years of my practice, and I have seen a very depressive scenario. Most of them, see, as they grow up, and in India, basically we have a very uh, what do we say? The education level of families is not very good. So most of these uh, patients are deserted by the family and they live alone. They are not with the families anymore. They don't have any family support. They have lack of social acceptance, no social status. So they tend to stay in groups and communities. In India, prominently, you will see all these groups termed as hijras. Hijra community has been in India since an ancient era. Like all these SARC countries around us will have hijra communities. You will never see these hijra communities anywhere in the Western world or Europe or America. They are not existent. They are only existing in India and around countries. Because it has been a tradition. They obviously lack of education. Obviously, they are denied jobs. They don't have a remuneration. One, because they don't have a social status, it is very difficult for them to get jobs and earn their own living. So there are social organizations, there are NGOs who support them, but the number of these NGOs need to increase. The number of social support organizations need to increase, who will help them financially, who will help them get jobs and on their own living. So all because of all these factors, what happens is that they succumb to sexual exploitation and then finally end up with professions like prostitution, and then obviously then once these things occur, then there are a lot of health hazards that come into picture. Next slide, please.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir, but please wind up the session within 2 minutes.
Just 2 minutes.
I
I'm
think
winding up.
just three slides are left here.
Relate the health problems, sexually transmitted disease because of prostitution, trauma, sexual exploitation, victimization, and they go through a lot of mental agony and mental health concerns which are not taken care of. There are also a lot of addictions, drug addictions, and finally leads to malnutrition. Next slide, please. I won't go into the details of problems related to GRS procedures because these are surgical. But next slide. Uh, Again, as I said, I mean, there are a lot of ideas for improvement, formation of new NGOs, change of implementation of the government has to form new resolutions and implement them for their upliftment. Basically, we have to look forward to social acceptance of these individuals. They are not abnormal. Our society sees these people as abnormal, but they are not abnormal at all. That is what the thought process and thinking of the society needs to change. We have to focus on their education and for prevention of sexually transmitted diseases. All NGOs, according to me, they have to approach the corporate sector for the CSR activities directed towards their community. There is a lot of funding which is available, but which is not exploited to the fullest extent. So we need to do that and encourage employers for job opportunities for these people. So there are a lot of things which the NGOs and everything can do. Thank you very much. Next slide, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for an extremely informative session and many terminologies, basically, I think, which has got cleared today because of your session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now we move forward with our next speaker, Dr. Sadhna Nathu, who will cover the psychological perspective of LGBTQIA plus community. Dr. Sadhna Nathu is an associate professor and head of UG and PG Department of Psychology at Modern College, Savitribai Phule, Pune University. She has worked for 30 plus years as an academician, feminist, psychotherapist, activist, researcher, and community psychologist. Dr. Sadhna has done long standing work on gender and mental health and youth and mental health. She has written extensively on these issues in national and international journals. She has also chaired and been a resource person from grassroots to global level. Dr. Sadhna has completed 7 independent research projects on these topics and written numerous books and book chapters. She has been an editor, editorial collective member, and expert peer reviewer for various national and international journals. Ma'am is also a MPhil and PhD guide in psychology and women's studies with numerous students who have been awarded degrees. She's an advisor and consultant on research to several NGOs. Ma'am is working with POSH committees as an external expert with NGOs, academic sector, and corporates. She runs a peer support and speak out group in her institution and also heads the counseling cell. Dr. Sadhna Nathu is a trainer on gender sensitization, gender spectrum, and feminist psychotherapy and mentoring in peer support for LGBTQIA plus persons. Over to you, ma'am.
Hello, everyone. I think I'm audible, right?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Yeah, and I can see that I've been made presenter. So
Yes.
let me thank the organizers for inviting me to this panel, and I'm joining all of you from Pune. And I'll start with my presentation immediately. I'm very happy that, Disha Pinky Sheikh has already set the context and told us, about the need for flexibility when we think about LGBTIQ A plus persons, human beings, our fellow citizens. And I'm going to be talking on the back of a medical practitioner, so you will see some commonalities and, of course, some departures, because my entire presentation and my talk to y'all, with y'all, comes from a feminist psychological perspective, which is rooted, in what is happening on the ground level with people who come from this community as well. So I hope my presentation is visible. You can tell me. I'm going to slideshow. Yeah, it's visible, right? My presentation is visible. Organizers,
Yes,
please
ma'am.
help me.
Yeah,
Is
ma'am,
it
just a
visible?
second. Huh?
Yeah, all right. So I'm going to be talking on psychological challenges faced by the LGBT IQA plus community and what is the way forward. I'll quickly show you some, posters which tell you about the perceptions and misconceptions about the community. So in this poster, you can see this is a graphic in which you can see visual in which you can see this poster which says "Kya aapko gay hai?" All right. So this is how the rest of us, the rest of the world thinks of, you know, queer identities as a disease. Kya aapko gay hai? This is another very, very common stereotype misconception, but you don't look queer. Okay. As though there is a certain kind of, prototype of people who are not straight, then there is rarely any understanding of intersectionalities among the LGBTIQ people.
Sorry to
So this,
interrupt you, ma'am.
yeah,
Ma'am, can you just do a full screen
yeah, I am
slideshow? You
on full
can,
screen at my end.
no, you
I'm on
can start
slideshow.
the slideshow so that
Yeah,
it is visible on
I
the
am
entire screen
using
over.
slideshow at my end.
Ma'am, F5 if you can press, please.
Pardon?
F5 key if you can press on the keyboard.
Yeah, I have. Okay, F5. And at my end, it is visible as a slideshow.
Okay, here you can just see the PPT.
You can only see the PPT. You can't see my slides.
No, we
One.
can see your slides, but not the entire screen.
Okay. Now I'm again going to from the beginning on slideshow. Yeah, can you see it full screen?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. So you all took a look at this poster which says "Kya aapko gay hai?" Then this one which says, "Well, you don't look queer." Yeah. So as though there is a certain look among people who are queer. And this which talks about intersectionality, which says that Aam Janta says you can't be both gay and Muslim. So this brings me to my first, point of psychological vulnerability for queer persons. The rest of us are asking questions like, is one born like that? And since there was a biomedical expert who spoke before me, and I'm so glad he said that these are hypotheses and they haven't been proved, that is this a genetic abnormality? Are, recessive and dominant alleles uh, responsible for making a person not straight, as though? And this is highly debatable. This has remained a big controversy world over among all kinds of experts. And as a feminist psychologist, I do not subscribe to this, that this is a genetic abnormality. And thankfully, fundamental sciences have also not been able to prove that these are genetic abnormalities. People are just different. Okay. Then the other misconception is that anybody who is not like the heterosexual majority is weird and abnormal. So for a long, long time, the manual that our medical expert referred to, that is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Illness Diagnosis, which both psychiatrists and clinical psychologists like me, we use. So for some time, all queer persons were certified as abnormal till the DSM-3 revised. And then there was, an upsurge of protests by queer persons all over the world. They were researchers, individuals, NGOs who sort of stormed these bastions, and they had to remove it from the abnormality, prism. But that still remains in the minds of practitioners, both medical practitioners as well as mental health practitioners. So I will elaborate a little bit later. Is this only sexual identity? This is another common misconception, that being lesbian, gay, bisexual, the intersex is of course excused, and transgender, and the umbrella term gay, is it a fad? So obviously not. But these thoughts that are there in people's minds, they create a lot of damage, as though it is a fad and the whole world, if we remove this faddish kind of element, the whole world would, simply turn straight. Stereotypes are of course held that since we want to put people into two boxes of male and female, and even this entire sex as a given and gender as something socially constructed. So the way in which we behave in a masculine or feminine manner has been rejected. In fact, Disha made a reference to it. She said that, this accepted sex, that is simply your reproductive organs or genitals, is also now being disputed. That, well, I don't want them. I don't want this assigned sex, and I will decide my assigned gender. So it's not so simple and clinical. It is quite complicated, both psychologically and biologically. There are a whole lot of confusions between intersex and transgender. And of course, medically it is XXY and XYY chromosome. It used to be called hermaphroditism in older literature and work. And then we have moved to categories of transvestites and transgender. So you can see that these are, continuums. These are continuums. And people have multiple identities, both in terms of being LGBTIQ, also having a caste, a religion, a nation. At one level, these are their social identities, and one also transitions between the categories. I will come to that later. Psychological repercussions are not just in terms of different kinds of, disorders like anxiety, depression, etc., etc. Of course, queer people go through them a lot, but it is also the everyday violence which is creating a lot of psychological burden for this community. There's plenty of discrimination, both in private space, that is in their homes, within families, and also out in public spaces. So Disha just said that this public platform, she is a resource person, but if she takes the public transport, everybody is going to exclude her. And you see that happening rampantly. And this is also causing psychological vulnerability and trauma, which is as bad as the burden of being diagnosed with depression or depressive disorder. The kind of ostracism. Okay, so why are transgenders living in their own small subculture of the guru and the chela? So one reason is it is their own subculture that they are, subscribing to. The second is that the rest of the society doesn't want them. So they have to lead double lives. There is a day life, and then there is their own personal life. The amount of homophobia and transphobia all over the world, it is far from gone. And again, I'll refer to Disha's speech, where she said it is all right to say somebody out there is gay or trans, but when it is within your own friend circle or families, you see a lot of double standards and a lot of hypocrisy, which is also psychologically damaging. So the power of heteronormativity is, very, very sound and very, very gross. And that is, a psychological burden as well. Now, when we were neatly putting out LGBTIQ, female to male to female, gender reassignment, that is all right. Clinically, that may sound like a given, but psychologically, on the ground, it is not so. I do queer affirmative therapy, though I'm a straight person, as an ally, somebody involved with the queer movement. I have a lot of clients, students, etc., coming to me, and their lives, for many of them, are gender fluid, non-binary. So whatever, assigned gender or aspirational gender, people move across these binaries. So you can't even say, that we want to fix you, because that is the rest of us, straight people, who want to fix them into, very neatly sorted categories. We want to pigeonhole them. So ha apla problem hai, and it is not so cut and dried as, okay, this is your sex, this is your gender, and this is your attraction, so this is your sexuality. People move. So I'll quickly give you an example of this client who came, who was facing a lot of trauma and a lot of, trouble, accepting that she was a lesbian, which finally with validation she could. But then the next thing was that she wanted to transition into a male. So you can't just sort her and say, well, you're a lesbian, be quiet and remain there. So no, from her acceptance of her lesbian identity, she did think that maybe she is a transgender. So it is not so neat, cut and dried, because of the fluidity. The other problem that, of course, queer persons face, which is a big psychological challenge in the West, it is called coming out. So you want to disclose, you want to tell people, or you don't want to tell. Regardless of the choices you make, you carry that psychological pain of hiding from people who are close to you. Whom do you share this with? And in India, in all Asian countries, it's very difficult because we lead collective identities. We still haven't become completely individualistic societies. So I see that with a lot of my clients, with a lot of NGOs that I work with who are working with the LGBT community, as well as my students, where I run a speak out group. So this coming out, not coming out, being caught out, closure, disclosure is also a lot of psychological burden. Rape, molestation, trafficking is happening, and the everyday violence and the trauma of rape from within private spaces, that is their own families, relatives, and the public space. That is also a huge trigger for queer persons. Uh, we know, college is organizing this event, and we know that our educational spaces, our work spaces, we have not made any provisions for everyday life of people who are not straight. So, what toilets does one use? What happens in hostels and other places where queer persons are staying? What happens to their privacy, their identity? That is always never taken on board. So all this is equally psychologically damaging. Section 377 has been scrapped. The transgender bill is being disputed, debated. But is it giving people the psychological right to be who they are and flourish? We don't know. The jury is still out on that. Now let me come to
Sorry to interrupt.
hardcore. Yeah,
Ma'am, can you please wind up the session in 5 minutes?
yes, I will. Thank you
Thanks.
for that. Now I'm coming to the hardcore mental health issues. Okay. So for a queer person to accept that I'm not like the rest of society, thanks to huge social pressure from family and people outside, that is a big mental health issue, which leads to all, from anxiety to depression and suicidal tendencies. So we have a high rate of suicide among the queer community, slightly higher than straight people from all margins, all marginalized sections. Families themselves, parents are under pressure. Families themselves are under pressure because log kya kahenge. So they also, the carers in the family also go through mental health issues. Something that has been an ethical, legal nightmare is conversion therapy. I want all of you to understand this. Conversion therapy is not banned in India. What happens in conversion therapy? Queer persons are taken to psychiatrists. Of course, some psychiatrists are not doing this, but a number of practitioners are using ECT, what is called shock treatment in lay language. So you shock uh, LGBT persons into becoming straight, or you give them uh, medication and drugs which induce nausea while they are watching homoerotic stuff. So either way, you want to coerce and convert them into becoming straight. And this is rampantly practiced. Well-meaning parents are taking their children, and coercive parents are also taking them, youngsters, to convert them to becoming straight. And that creates huge mental health issues for the person themselves. And that can also lead to suicidal tendencies to escape this forced conversion. They are forever being pushed into heterosexual marriages, which they lead double lives. That is also psychological damage. Correctional rapes by family and outsiders so that they somehow conform to becoming straight. Gender identity dysphoria or gender dysphoria. Well, the medical practitioner who does plastic surgery obviously was talking about it. Now, let me give you the other end. As a feminist psychotherapist, I help my clients to accept their gender fluid identity. That is option one. Some of them want to simply cross dress. Why? Because gender reassignment surgery is extremely costly. And we don't have, NGOs all over who are going to sign up for it. Because why will NGOs sign up for individuals like that? So there are a whole lot of people who want to transition and they'd rather look at it as transformation in their lives. But majority of them are satisfied not going in for gender reassignment because it has a lot of negative hormonal, biological, physical effects as well. Something that Disha spoke, and I think all of us are aware, that we do not have counselors at school level, people at college level, who are accepting queer identities. And we need, like I said, I practice queer affirmative therapy, but I'm in minority, a straight practitioner practicing it. We have just about seen educated queer persons. They're a handful. They themselves are practicing queer affirmative therapy, where you do not tell a queer person that, look, you're a misfit and you have to adjust to the rest of society. We give them validation and thereby we help to prevent not just suicide, but prevent them from, hating themselves thanks to the rest of society. So what is the way forward? Where all of us can be participants, both as professionals and as civil society people. So sustainability, sensitivity, support, sharing, large scale solidarity. So congratulations for organizing this conference. But, these efforts have to multiply. Now we run a peer support and speak out group for youngsters, where some of them feel supported and safe. And after 3 and 5 years, they have even been able to come out to their friends and families. But we need more and more such efforts. We need support groups for parents so that the psychological damage they are going through can be reduced and they can support their own offspring. We need educational spaces becoming more flexible and not just claiming to becoming inclusive. Therapy, I said, and larger society has to understand that the queer community is different. They are not like the majority of heterosexuals, different but equal. They are our equal citizens. Something that we have to avoid, which has become rampant now. So you can see this visual which says that when movies have 100 straight characters, web series have 100 straight characters, one token gay and no bisexual. So we should not end up just with tokenism. Then we are not psychologically helping anybody. And when it's June, it's Pride Month. So the kind of pink washing, as it is now called, that also we need to avoid because then we will be helping our queer friends psychologically. So I think I've stuck to my time. And if you want to understand better, uh, please take a look at this book which I've written, which came out last year. It's about psychology and gender, and it talks about queer persons, their psychological challenges, their mental health, and much more. And it also tells you that it is not neat and cut and dried, that we just sort them into categories and think of them as alphabetical soup. We think of them as equal citizens and equal human beings and give them the respect and acceptance that is due.
Thank you, ma'am, for enlightening us with your thoughts. And thank you for sticking to the time. We are extremely sorry for reducing your session time. We'll surely have some different sessions for all of you all, wherein we'll have an ample amount of time for you all to speak and for us to listen. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I think my last slide gave my mail ID, and that is there. So if people want to contact, send anything by mail, they are welcome.
Yes, ma'am, surely. Any questions, we'll send it to this mail ID.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Moving on to our third speaker, we have with us Mr. Avinoba Datta, who will cover the social perspective and policy making part. Mr. Avinoba Datta is an independent public policy researcher and co-founder of Plexus India Foundation, where they work with a focus on economic inclusion of transgender and economically underprivileged gender and sexual minority community individuals from rural spaces. Mr. Datta is a GSM rights activist and worked with numerous LGBTQ plus collectives and organizations across the globe. They were one of the petitioners challenging the constitutionality of Section 337 of the Indian Penal Code in the Supreme Court. Currently, Sir is a research fellow at the William Institute, which is a leading LGBTQ think tank based out of the Department of Law, University of California, LA. They are working on mapping multidimensional poverty and various aspects of complex livelihood, framework of transgender and larger GSM communities. Mr. Datta also works with the National Institute of Rural Development and Panchayati Raj, a think tank under the Ministry of Rural Development, where they are developing a policy framework for collective approach towards encouraging entrepreneurs from the community to generate wage employment for transgender persons across India, especially those who are homeless, school dropouts, underskilled, multidimensional poor, and are compelled to take up risky professions such as begging and sex work. Mr. Datta is a co-founder and CEO of Plexus India Foundation, which works in the domain of agri-food production, waste management, and textile manufacturing, and employed a total number of 37 transgender and economically unprivileged queer persons from the rural spaces. Mr. Datta envisions an India where no transgender, gender diverse, and GSM person is compelled to beg on the streets or to take up unsafe modes of livelihood to meet their basic needs. And they want to achieve it in their lifetime. Over to you, sir.
Hello, am I audible, right?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this particular session, and I'm delighted to be here among all of you. I have also quite carefully listened to what our previous speakers had to say, and I'm glad that somebody has mentioned this rainbow washing, and then like this Pride Month that happens in the month of June, and the kind of photos and the kind of things that we see on social media, and the kind of tokenism that we witness during this time, right? So I would start my like my small speech. I know that you people are running out of time, so I would try to make it as much short as I like can. I had a very small PPT, but looking at the time constraint, I don't think that I would be able to show the entire slide with you. So what I would do is I would just give you a brief of what I work on and why I think this is something I would. Uh, I mean, like this is something which we all should be working on as well. So let me just present this particular slide that I have. Just give me a moment. Is it visible there?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I made it in the slideshow. I'm not very sure whether you can see the slideshow or not. So yeah. So anyways, so I personally focus on the economic rights. The primary reason for that is that मुझे लगता है कि अगर आपके पास पैसे नहीं है तो आपके पास कुछ भी नहीं है. ये all जो rights and like we could hear people are talking about rights, people are talking about psychological uh, rights. People also talking about different kinds of gender reassignment surgeries, then psychological trauma, psychiatric assessment, etc. We also know that there are some legal challenges that the members of the LGBTQI communities in India have to face. There's like a strong legal battle, like a long legal battle. Somebody might be actually talking about that maybe after me. बट ये जो सब हुआ है, इनके जो impacts है, the impacts are like quite serious. I would just share some of the data that I have. At this point of time in India, there was a research study that happened back in 2017, 2017, 2018, and the study was done by NHRC, जहाँ पर ये लिखा था कि 92% of transgender persons in India do not participate in any form of economic activities. और होमलेसनेस के बारे में जो लिखा था वो था कि 98% of them are like do not live with their biological families, do not live with the natural families. एजुकेशन के बारे में जो लिखा था वो था कि 87% of transgender and other gender variant community individuals drop out of formal education at some point of their lives, and mostly before standard 8. तो ये जो marginal marginalization है, ये जो the the constant marginalization of transgender and other LGBTQ individuals, इनके एक जो impact आया है वो है उनका economic rights के ऊपर. So that's exactly why you see people begging on the street. That's exactly why you see a lot of trans and queer individuals are part of the sex work. I mean, like so they do take up sex work and everything. एंड अपने जो पॉलिसी है भारत में जो पॉलिसी है वो भी ज्यादा चेंज नहीं हुआ था, वो भी अभी तक इतना इंक्लूसिव भी नहीं हुआ है that like they have, I mean, like they can be part of the mainstream economic activities as well. Yes, there are certain things that like there are certain initiatives that we have to also speak about when talking about like the economic inclusion of transgender and larger LGBTQ individuals. लेकिन उनके एक एक मार्जिनलाइज कम्युनिटी को मेन स्ट्रीम में लाने के लिए जो पॉलिसी के ऊपर जो चेंज होना चाहिए वो चेंजेस अभी तक नहीं हुआ. आई वुड जस्ट गिव यू पीपल ब्रीफ आइडिया के ये मार्जिनलाइजेशन क्या है. uh, we all are aware about section 377. Yes, I was one of the petitioners challenging the constitutionality of section 377 of the Indian Penal Code, which, by the way, didn't criminalize homosexuality. That criminalized any sexual activities, any sexual intimities that goes against the order of nature. So we don't really know what the against the order of nature means. And then this particular law also didn't criminalize any gender identity as well. It didn't talk about consent, it didn't talk about age, etc., right? So what happened was, section 377 was introduced back in the year of 1860. उनके 11 साल बाद there was again another law which was introduced by the British colonial rulers back then, and the name of the law is Criminal Tribes Act. ये Criminal Tribes Act जो है 1871 में इंट्रोड्यूस हुआ था, एंड दे वर लाइक सो दे नोटिफाइड कि भारत में ये 100-150 जो ट्राइब है, they were treated as criminal by birth. So, for example, you might have heard about these tribes called Munda, a tribe called Ho, a tribe called Santal, like all these tribes, all of them have been criminalized at birth. So at birth में जो हुआ है, that means if a child is born in the tribal family, the child will be known as a criminal, right? So ये जो criminal tribe act थे, इनको उन लोगों ने इनको उन लोगों ने 1897 में they also included transgender individual. Back then the term transgender was not there. The term was eunuchs. मतलब जिनको हम लोग वो हिंदी में जो गाली है छक्का, वो हम लोग एक्चुअली बोलते हैं. In Marathi, the term is also nathu. So, like all these terms that we say to these individuals. So, eunuchs were the part of this act as well. So, eunuchs were also, so eunuchs matlab transgender and larger LGBTQI population. They were treated as criminal at birth. And then there was arrest. There was arrest without any I mean, like, without letting them prove their crime, blah blah blah. So all these things happen. So in the year of 1952, when our भारत का संविधान जब adopted हुआ था इंडिया में, तो all these tribes, all these saw their so tribe जो भी अपने वो criminal tribe acts के under आए थे, all of them got denotified, uh, except eunuchs, except transgender and the larger LGBTQI people. Now you can also compare this with the socioeconomic condition of several tribes in India, right? That many of the tribes, they do not have the means to means of livelihood. They cannot earn a sustainable livelihood. Imagine communities which got denotified back in 1952, they are still struggling to earn a livelihood. Then a particular marginalized community who just got decriminalized, uh, who just got accepted in the year of 2014 through a verdict named Nalsa verdict, where the Supreme Court actually, like accepted that transgender are part of Indian society, and then a community which got decriminalized just 4 years ago in 2018. So you have to imagine the socioeconomic status, the impact of this entire marginalization on their socioeconomic status. So मुझे लगता है कि ये सब rights के बारे में जो भी है, सोसाइटी चेंज होने के जो बात हो रहा है, एंड दैट is very important. However, we should stop making more collateral damages, and to stop the collateral damages, we have to work with people who we see in the rural spaces. Many of them are yet to come out, many of them are yet to understand what they are, and we must have to work on their livelihood and economic health as well, because I personally feel that economy right to participate in economic activities is the central theme of all your rights. So once your right to participate in economic activities are kind of established, then you would be able to exercise, say, your right to food, right to shelter, right to healthcare, right to mobility. Everything depends upon the money that you have been earning or you want to earn. So keeping that in mind, I didn't want to start with uh, a livelihood opportunity or a livelihood project that that we see people from the urban spaces. Yes, after the 377 verdict, there have been a lot of noise around, like there have been a lot of noise around के हाँ इंडिया में corporates जो bodies है, they have to become more transgender inclusive. India में जो corporate जो bodies है, they have to become more LGBTQI inclusive. This is very important. And we also have been noticing that Mumbai में, Bangalore में, Delhi में, Chennai में, there are like LGBTQ job fair हो रहा है, जो जहाँ पर a lot of corporate bodies are trying to hire people from the LGBTQ job fair. But then we have to also understand this fact really well, that ये जो LGBTQ job fair हो रहा है, वहाँ पर कौन कौन से companies आ रही है. So the companies like Google, companies like Cisco, companies like Tata Consultancy, Infosys, Wipro, all these big corporate and IT companies are coming to hire people through this LGBTQ job fair. लेकिन एक बात को समझना चाहिए कि a community where 87 percentage of them are school dropout, would they be ever able to get job through this LGBTQ job fair? To these companies, to this corporate, where a minimum educational requirement is necessary, right? So तुमको एक corporate job के लिए तुमको आपको एक corporate job पाने के लिए इनसे Infosys, इनसे Google, you also have to have certain degrees. Somebody who is like dropping out of school at the age of say 14 or 13 because of the stigma, because of the violence that they face, what kind of corporate job are we talking about? And then we also, I personally feel that we also livelihood का मतलब ये भी है कि we also start looking at livelihood not from the urban understanding, but also in respect to the rural spaces. So मैंने क्या किया, I started working on I I personally feel that it's also important to make this thing clear that अगर एक ट्रांसजेंडर व्यक्ति, अगर एक एलजीबीटीक्यू कम्युनिटी का अगर व्यक्ति, if they are also human being, they can also अच्छा I personally feel that I need to present myself, I mean like, is my screen visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay, okay. So I personally feel that कि we also have to work on to make certain role models, क्योंकि अभी जो role models अपने सामने है ना, ट्रांसजेंडर व्यक्तियों के लिए जो रोल मॉडल सामने है, you do not see a transgender farmer, you do not see a transgender waste collector, you don't see a gay I mean like weaver. तो I personally feel कि it's important to create that role model, क्योंकि जो ग्रास रूट में, जो रूरल स्पेसेस में जो भी अपने एलजीबीटी कम्युनिटी से, समुदाय से जो जो व्यक्ति रहते हैं ना, they some of them are farmer, some of them are fisher, I mean like they do fishery, they do, you know, like they collect waste, they also manage waste, some of them madhu, you know, like that's called bee uh, keeping. Some of them also do that. Some of them वो बाजार में जाके सब्जियां बेचते हैं. So all these livelihoods needs to be also promoted, and there have to be some role models so that people कल अगर कोई ट्रांसजेंडर व्यक्ति, अगर कोई एलजीबीटी कम्युनिटी से, समुदाय से जो व्यक्तियां है, if they wanted to take up a livelihood, they don't always look at begging, sex work, NGOs, and makeup artists. They can also look at these professions as well. Anyways, so I started working on a project where we are working on organic farming. We started with this particular project with mushroom cultivation. हम लोगों ने 2019 में ये project शुरू किया था, and then I think this project is actually is going really great at this point of time, as we have employed 37 transgender individuals across Bengal. So we have a land where we, you know, like do work on various organic farming. We also work on waste management, uh, you know. So this is what we have been trying to do in through this initiative of ours. And we have realized the moment people started earning money, that money could be as low as 4,000, 5,000, but that is giving them some sort of agency to their economic outputs. They know what to do with that money that they are earning. Some of them might also want to buy some fancy dresses, some of them might also want to do certain savings for the future. Some of them might also undergo gender affirmative therapy, like say leisure therapy, facial hair removal therapy, etc. But then through earning money, through ensuring that their economic rights are kind of protected, we are also uh, unlocking the vast area of different sort of rights that we try to unlock through our movement, that is right to food, right to shelter. Because you you'll be knowing one thing very very sure, that जब पैंडेमिक आए थे, जब कोविड-19 का पैंडेमिक जब आए थे, जब अपने इकोनॉमिक लॉकडाउन हुआ था, you also know it for sure that a lot of transgender individuals and economically underprivileged जो queer जो व्यक्तियां है, they were starving, uh, like they were starving for food because they have no savings, they had nothing. And then more than 1 million transgender and economically underprivileged queer individuals just in India have been pushed to poverty, where like their basic rights, as basic as staving of hunger, is right now compromised. So there are NGOs across India who have started providing dry ration materials to these transgender and economically underprivileged queer individuals. For example, Mumbai में जो अपने NGO है हम सफर ट्रस्ट, they have done like quite a phenomenal job. Tweet Foundation है, जो जहाँ पर भी जो LGBT community के लिए NGOs थे, they have all raised money to provide some food materials to these transgender individuals. So मुझे लगता है कि this is very important, because if you know कि what you are going to eat tomorrow, and you don't have to think about like how to get the money to buy food, like for yourself, a lot of agency can be protected. You can also exercise your right to cultural activities, your right to social activities. अगर तुम्हारे पेट में खाना नहीं है तो गाना भी नहीं आएगा. That's also very important to understand, right? So this is where I work, and this is what I personally do. And I would urge to a lot of people through this particular conference that if you really want to work on transgender and LGBTQI community, first try to understand कि उनके जो प्रॉब्लम्स है, उनका उनका जो प्रॉब्लम्स है उसका इम्पैक्ट उनका इकोनॉमिक हेल्थ पे, उनका जॉब लाइवलीहुड में कैसे आता है, एंड हाउ टू सॉल्व दीज प्रॉब्लम्स एज वेल. There are important work that is happening in the social, medical, psychological, legal sector as well, but that lot of more focus need to be also put in this particular domain जहाँ पर हम लोग पॉलिसी के बारे में बात कर रहा है, where we're talking about economic inclusion of trans and queer individuals. Thank you very much. If there is any question, I am happy to take.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your experience with us. So, because we are lacking of time, so questions, if any, will be mailed to you. Now, coming on to our last speaker of session 3, that is a technical session 3, we have with us Advocate Rajendra Nalage, sir. I request Birja Mishra to welcome Advocate Rajendra Nalage with a token of appreciation. Sir will cover the legal aspects of LGBTQIA plus community. Sir is a professionally qualified law practitioner with over 20 years of real-time work experience in the court. Presently, he is working in the Thane District Court since January 2002. Currently, he is a secretary for the Thane District Law Library and expert director and legal advisor in Ekta Cooperative Credit Society since 2003. Sir has been working as an advocate in the Sessions Court and Magistrate Court at Thane, Kalyan, and in Metropolitan Court, City Civil and Sessions Court at Mumbai. Sir has been handling various criminal cases and civil cases. To name a few, he has handled cases pertaining to Indian Penal Code, cases under Negotiable Instrument Act, property matters, etc. He has been invited on FM radio on various occasions as a speaker in the program called Kanun Ki Baat. He is a highly knowledgeable person in the legal aspects. Now I request Sir to take over the session.
Good afternoon, one and all. Considering that time constraint, I have to curtail my lecture within 15 minutes. Please bear with me if I speedily spoken up. I will try to share with the knowledge in 3 languages as far as possible. But once we start with single language, it's very difficult to switch over on other language, but I will try to make it as far as possible. Another thing, the legal language itself is very technical, very boring, but I will try to make it as simple as possible. Now, we are here since morning. I understand the patience of audience. I do not want to test it. So please bear with me for 15 minutes only. The subject assigned to me is the legal aspects of this community. To understand it in better way, if we go far back in our epic books, we'll find the reference of this community with respect and manners. For to give example, Sikhandi, Brahannalla. Sikhandi was a brave warrior. Brahannalla was also a warrior. Also we can find the reference in Valmiki Ramayana also, King Bhagiratha, who is born from the union of his two mothers. In even Malik Kafur, who was the we can say Ghulam of the Alauddin Khilji, is also transgender, but he was also a brave warrior. Till the period of 19th century, we were very respectedly using these terms, but after the British era, they were termed as a criminalized. That with the rise of British Empire, thoughts of Indian people also changed according to, and hence the laws become anti-sodomy and homosexual activities become illegal consecutively. To give a glance to the LGBT movement in India, we can say that after independence, that is on November 26, 1949, the right of equality was implemented under Article 14. The homosexuality still remained a criminal offence. Decades later, on August 11, 1992, the first known protest for gay rights was held. In 1999, Kolkata hosts India's first gay pride parade. The parade, with only 15 attendees, was named Kolkata Rainbow Pride. In 2019, a landmark Delhi High Court decision in the Naz Foundation versus Government of Institute of Delhi case said that treating consensual homosexual communication between adults as a crime is a violation of fundamental rights protected by India's constitution. In the Suresh Kumar Kaushal, another judgment which has been challenged before the Supreme Court, unfortunately the Supreme Court turned out the judgment given by the Delhi High Court. In late 2015, MP Shashi Tharoor introduced a bill to decriminalize homosexuality, but it was rejected by the Lok Sabha. In August 2017, Supreme Court upheld the right of privacy as a fundamental right under the Constitution. The landmark judgment, Puthaswamy judgment, this gave renewed hope to LGBT community. Now I would like to just go through some landmark judgments to make you understand what are the legal progress or of this particular community. As I mentioned, first judgment was challenged in the 2019, that is Naz Foundation, wherein Delhi High Court upheld that it is unconstitutional. But then that judgment has been challenged before the Supreme Court. Suresh Kumar Kaushal versus Naz Foundation. The Supreme Court of India stepped backward the judgment of Delhi High Court and recriminalized homosexuality. Then very important and landmark judgment as far as this community is concerned, that is a National Legal Services Authority versus Union of India, that was pronounced in the year 2014, wherein the court held that the non-recognition of their identities was in violation of Article 14, 15, 16 and 21 of the Constitution of India. The Supreme Court of India redirected the Government of India to treat the members of LGBT community as a third gender, as an economically and socially backward class. I don't think till date any government has implemented this particular direction. It was also specified that the government should make proper policies for the LGBT community in the lights of Article 15.2, 16.4 to protect equal opportunity in education and employment as per the judgment. The third gender would be placed as other backward classes, OBC, to offer them the benefit of reservation in government jobs and educational institutions both. The court also took cognizance that a difference between one's birth gender and identity is not essentially a pathological condition. Then another judgment of A.S. Puthaswamy versus Union of India, which has been justly referred by me. The 9-judge bench of Supreme Court of India is responsible for rectifying the judgment given in case of Suresh Kumar Kaushal, just referred by me, that NAS Foundation judgment has been challenged in Supreme Court, which has turned back the NAS Foundation judgment, but that Suresh Kumar judgment was rectified by K. Puthaswamy judgment. Sexual orientation is an essential attribute of privacy which is protected by various articles of Indian Constitution, that is observed by Supreme Court. Equality is the sexuality of each individual be protected to an even platform. The minuscule population of LGBT म्हणजे अल्पसंख्यक आहेत, कमी संख्यक आहेत, बहुत कम संख्या में है, ये कोई वजह नहीं हो सकती की उनकी जो मांगे है, त्यांच्या ज्या काही मागण्या आहेत त्यांच्याकडे दुर्लक्ष करण्याचं हे कारण होऊ शकत नाही की ते अल्पसंख्यक आहेत, ते मायनॉरिटी मध्ये आहेत, फार कमी संख्येमध्ये आहेत. अल्टिमेटली हे बघायचं, इफ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन डज नॉट डिस्क्रिमिनेट बिटवीन द टू, हु आर द लॉज, हु आर द सोसायटी डिस्क्रिमिनेटेड. जर राज्यघटनेत असं काय वर्गीकरण नाहीये, भेदभाव नाहीये, तर सोसायटीला असं वर्गीकरण भेदभाव करता येत नाही, कायद्याला तसा भेदभाव करता येत नाही. अँड सच लिमिटेशन्स ऑफ द फंडामेंटल राइट कॅनॉट बी हेल्ड एक्सेप्टेबल इवन वेन अ फ्यू as opposed to a large number of people are subjected to hostile treatment. Then there was thereafter the landmark judgment reported in year 2018, that is Navjit Singh Johar versus Union of India, which abolished section 377 of IPC, which was till there, and it was abused in number of cases, not only in related with this community but in family matters also. That judgment says the 5-bench judgment of Supreme Court of India delivered a historical verdict on sexual orientation in which the homosexuality partially decriminalized as under section 377 of IPC. With the support of Article 14 of the Indian Constitution, consensual homosexual sex between adults was not a valid intelligible differentia, means is not against the order of nature, or not a rational nexus, means which is based on subjective test like a morality etc., which is not clearly understandable. With support of Article 15, the approach of Delhi court at the time of Nas Foundation case is that sex includes biological sex, which sexual orientation is actually true, which reflects improved understanding. With support of Article 19, human sexuality cannot be defined narrowly, so discrimination against LGBT is completely unconstitutional. It gives right to express sexual orientation freely. With the support of Article 21, right to life and liberty include privacy, dignity and anatomy. It can be restricted only on reasonable grounds. But there is something which is still remains, that in case of force relating to sex with minors, non-consensual sexual acts and bestiality is also criminal offence. So on the basis of this judgment, or after this judgment, the act has been passed in the year 2019, called as the Transgender Persons Protections of Rights Act 2019. In nutshell, what are the key point in respect of that act? That it defines a transgender. I think the definition of transgender is elaborately discussed by my earlier speaker. I will not repeat it. The act says that non-discrimination. The law is in the strict prohibits of discrimination against transgender persons at educational or professional institutions, healthcare and other public facilities, as well as reinforces their right of movement, property and holding of offices. Prohibition against discrimination, right of residence. Every transgender person have right to reside and be included in his household. If the immediate family is unable to take care for the transgender person, the person may be placed in rehabilitation center on the orders of competent court. This act prohibits that you cannot throw away the transgender. आपण घरातून त्यांना बाहेर काढू शकत नाही on the ground that you are a transgender. This is an offense under section 18 of this act. Various acts has been made offense under this particular act as per section 18. In this act, various definition has been defined. Due to restraint of time, I am unable to clarify you all the definitions given in this act. But this act specifies that inclusive education has to be for the transgenders. institutions defined, local authority defined, national council has been established as per this particular act. This act says that no person or establishment shall discriminate against a transgender person on any of the following, namely educational establishment, employment or occupation, unfair treatment in healthcare services. They have given number of things which can be. Then recognition of identity. There is a specific provision provided in Act under section 6 and 7 that they can be provided identity card. Procedure has been prescribed in GR published on 25 सप्टेंबर 2020 ला सेंट्रल गव्हर्नमेंटने एक GR पब्लिश केलाय. त्या GR मध्ये इन डिटेल मध्ये दिलेले आहे की आयडेंटिटी कार्ड अप्लाय कसं करायचं, ते डिस्ट्रिक्ट मॅजिस्ट्रेट कडे करायचं असतं, कोणी अप्लाय करायचं, व्हॉट इज द प्रोसिजर, व्हॉट डॉक्युमेंट हॅज टू बी अटॅच फॉर गेटिंग दॅट आयडेंटिटी कार्ड. आणि इन केस ऑफ कन्वर्जन जर असेल तरी पहिल्या आयडेंटिटी कार्डच्या आधारे पुन्हा नवीन आयडेंटिटी कार्ड इश्यू केलं जातं. दॅट आयडेंटिटी कार्ड बी ट्रीटेड एज अ प्रूफ for all purposes. Then there are welfare measures by government which was specified in section 8 of the act. Section 9 says regarding obligation establishment and other persons, 9, 10, 11, 12. Then section chapter 6 speaks regarding education, social security and health of transgender persons, 13, 14. Wherein Act 14 specifies says that appropriate government shall formulate welfare schemes and programs to facilitate and support livelihood for transgender persons, including their vocational training and self-employment. So as far as legal aspect is concerned, जोपर्यंत कायद्याचा प्रश्न आहे, कायदा अत्यंत विस्तृत आहे, सविस्तर आहे, परंतु त्याचं इम्प्लिमेंटेशन काय होतंय हा महत्वाचा प्रश्न आहे. इम्प्लिमेंटेशनच्या बाबतीत आपण जर विचार केला तर आताच सकाळी मला वाटतं मेन्शन केलं, फक्त झारखंड, कर्नाटका आणि MP की UP हे एक 2-3 स्टेट वगळता बाकी कुठेही याचं सिरियसली इम्प्लिमेंटेशन होत नाही, इन्क्लुडिंग स्टेट ऑफ महाराष्ट्र, जे आपण अत्यंत अभिमानाने किंवा वृथा अभिमानाने म्हणतो की नंबर 1 स्टेट आहे. जर आपण कल्चरल सांस्कृतिक पॉइंटवर जर आपण अग्रेसर असू तो दिस स्टेट शुड हॅव बीन द नंबर 1 स्टेट फॉर declaring and basically implementing. Declaring is not in the hands of state government. It has been already through GR declared by the central government. National council has been appointed as per section 16, where is the union minister in charge of the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, chairperson as ex officio, minister of state in charge as a vice chairperson ex officio, secretary of government India, member ex officio, one representative each from the Ministry of Health, Employment, and some persons from transgender community has to be member there. Then as I said, as per section 18, some offences has been made as a punishable. What are they? Whoever compels or entices a transgender person to indulge in the act of force or bounded labor other than any compulsory services for public purpose imposed by government, denies a transgender person the right of passage to a public place or obstructs such person from using or having access to a public place to which other members have access to or right to use, forces or causes a transgender person to leave household, village or other place of residence and harms or injures transgenders the life, safety, health or well-being, whether mental or physical, of a transgender person or tends to do so acts including causing physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal and emotional abuse and economic abuse. See, try to understand this definition. Even though our single words are used, but each word has having wide and wide meaning. As far as emotional abuse is concerned, it is very wide definition. त्याचा जर आपण अर्थ काढायला गेलो तर कितीतरी गोष्टी इमोशनल अब्यूज मध्ये येतात. टू humiliate him in any manner amounts to emotional abuse. So shall be punished with imprisonment for a term which shall not be less than 6 months but which may extended to 2 years and with fine. या सगळ्या गोष्टींसाठी कमीत कमी शिक्षा जी आहे ती 6 महिने आहे, जास्तीत जास्त 2 वर्ष आहे. पण ही जी शिक्षा आहे किंवा ही जी तरतूद आहे इट इज इन रिस्पेक्ट ऑफ ट्रान्सजेंडर म्हणून त्यांच्या बाबतीत जे काही आपण करतो त्याबाबत आहे. याचा अर्थ असा नाही की कायद्यातील इतर तरतुदी ज्या आहेत IPC प्रमाणे असतील आणि कुठल्या ऍक्ट प्रमाणे असतील प्रॉपर त्या ऍप्लिकेबल नाहीत. या तरतुदी इन ऍडिशन टू द प्रिव्हेलिंग रेमेडीज अवेलेबल टू द ट्रान्सजेंडर्स. त्याच्या व्यतिरिक्त यात मिसेलिनियस मध्ये गव्हर्नमेंटला पॉवर्स दिले टू फॉर्म व्हेरियस पॉलिसीज. आय विल कम स्ट्रेट वे टू द पॉलिसीज. मी आता सांगितल्याप्रमाणे 25 सप्टेंबर 2020 ला एक GR आला. GR इट सेल्फ इज अ सेल्फ एक्सप्लेनेटरी. त्याच्यात वेगवेगळ्या तरतुदी दिलेल्या आहेत. हाऊ टू ऑब्टेन आय कार्ड कसं घ्यायचं, प्रोसिजर काय आहे आय कार्ड ऑब्टेन करण्यासाठी. विदिन 30 डेज ते दिलं पाहिजे अप्लाय केल्यापासून. दिलं नाही तर ॲपिलेट अथॉरिटीकडे अप्लाय करता येतं ॲज पर दिस प्रोव्हिजन्स. ह्या प्रोव्हिजन क्लिअरली सांगतात प्रोव्हाइडेड दॅट ऑल बेनिफिट्स दॅट अ ट्रान्सजेंडर पर्सन वॉज एंटायटल टू बेस ऑन अन आयडेंटिटी कार्ड इफ एनी इश्यूड by state authorities shall continue to be enjoyed by the transgender person based on the certificate of identity issued under these particular rules. Rule 6 सांगतो procedure 7 is regarding issue of certificate. I am little bit fast considering the limited time, please bear with me. 7 says issue of certificate of identity under section 7. 8 regarding communication or rejection of application. If it is rejected, then within 90 days they can appeal to the appellate authority. Then rule 8 welfare measures, education, social security and health of transgender persons by appropriate government. Now I will just read out the annexure 2 wherein that measures has been given. You will find out that on paper there are n number of provisions and made by the government or by the law. See, suggested list of welfare schemes to be considered. Access to health. At least one government hospital in every state shall be equipped to offer safe and free gender affirming surgery, counseling and hormone replacement therapy to the transgender community, including all male to female and female to male procedures. So at least one hospital in every state. State medical insurance shall cover. See, I need not to mention whenever word shall is used in our language, it is a mandatory. There is no option available to the implementing authority. It is a mandatory. You have to obey, you have to follow it. So state medical insurance shall cover proceedings of SRS, hormonal therapy, laser therapy, counseling and other health issues of transgender persons at private hospitals. Medical insurance cards, all healthcare facilities should ensure that there are separate wards for transgender persons. I have not come across, please clarify me if I am wrong. मी असं कुठेही कुठल्या हॉस्पिटलमध्ये आजपर्यंत सेपरेट वॉर्ड पाहिलेला नाहीये. माझं नॉलेज कमी असेल कारण मी त्या क्षेत्रात प्रॅक्टिकली माझं काम कमी, जे काय थोडीशी लिगलशी संबंधित आहे. प्लीज मेक मी करेक्ट इफ आय एम रॉंग, पण माझ्या पाण्यात असं नाहीये. देन एक्सेस टू एज्युकेशन, स्कॉलरशिप फॉर ट्रान्सजेंडर स्टुडंट्स. आय डोंट नो वेअर इट इज. प्लीज 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 अगेन बेअर विथ मी, कारण कायदा काय सांगतोय, प्रोसिजर काय आहेत आणि ऍक्च्युअल इम्प्लिमेंटेशन किती आहे त्याच्यातला फरक फक्त माझा सांगण्याचा उद्देश आहे. Inclusive and equitable quality education in schools that fosters respect for equality and gender diversity. Protection against ragging in the educational institutions with provisions for grievance redressal. There is a provision where is a grievance redressal forum should be everywhere in educational institution, in all establishments regarding redressal of grievance in respect of community. I don't know. Practically I have never came across की असं कुठे आहे. Protection against, facilitation of accommodation and schooling for transgender, gender non-conforming and intersex children in residential government schools and universities. Access to housing, affordable housing. पेपरवर आहे, प्रत्यक्षातलं मला विचारू नका. Shelter and community centers for at risk transgender youth that provide न्यूट्रिशियस फूड अँड काउन्सिलिंग. आता सकाळच्या वक्त्यात मेन्शन करताना सांगितलं, आय थिंक आपले जे की स्पीकर होते त्यांनी सांगितलं, इथे सांगितलं की मग अशी बोलताना सांगितलं, मला एक्झॅक्टली आठवत नाही. द ट्रान्सजेंडर्स हुज एज बिटवीन 14 to 16 आर ऑलवेज subject to sexual harassments. Before they could understand their gender, they are subject to sexual harassment. आणि त्यांनी पेन्शनचं सांगताना सांगितलं, आय थिंक दीक्षा मॅडमने, की वाय दिस इज इन्सिस्टिंग फॉर 40 years पेन्शन एज, कारण 60 पर्यंत ते हेल्दी राहतच नाही आणि त्याचे रिझन्स इकडे सगळे आहेत. म्हणून काय सांगितलं, प्रोव्हाइड फॉर न्यूट्रिशियस फूड अँड काउन्सिलिंग, देन ऍक्सेस टू सॅनिटायझेशन फॅसिलिटी अँड सेफ ड्रिंकिंग वॉटर, unfortunately which is not available to general public also, I am very sorry to say. Welfare measures, universal access to food security schemes and provisions of ration cards. Again, I am not come across for separate ration cards. Pensions for aged, disabled or other vulnerable transgender persons. Old age and retirement homes for transgender person facing housing exclusion. Public transport to have harassment free zones and transgender persons. I am sorry for my laughing, I am extremely sorry. पण काय होतंय, इथे दिसतंय काय आणि ऍक्च्युअली मध्ये रिअलिटी मध्ये आपण बाय आवर ओन एक्सपिरियन्स किंवा जे काय आता अनुभव आहेत, आणि सेकंड सेशन मध्ये आपण सक्सेस स्टोरी मध्ये आपल्याला आणखीन विदारक सत्य बघायला मिळेल की त्यांनी काय अनुभवलेलं आहे, समोर आहेत ते, म्हणजे काय दिलेलं आणि ऍक्च्युअली काय अनुभवलं जातंय. इकॉनॉमिक सपोर्ट, आय थिंक फ्यू मिनिट्स किती राहिले मॅम, 2 minutes. आय एम सो सॉरी, म्हणून मी फक्त ऍक्सेसवर आलो डायरेक्टली, सगळं स्किप केलंय. युनिव्हर्सल कव्हरेज ऑफ लाईफ इन्शुरन्स, ऍक्सेस टू बँकिंग अँड फायनान्शियल सर्व्हिसेस इन्क्लुडिंग लोन्स, explicit inclusion of transgender persons in employment guarantee scheme such as Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Development Manrega and all social security schemes, formation into self-help groups for livelihood activities, provisions of zero interest and other microfinance schemes. I will straightway get to the some latest development. Karnataka High Court has Tuesday, that is in the month of February 2021, directed center to immediately provide reservation, age relaxation and free concession to transgender persons. The Karnataka government has decided to reserve 1% jobs for the transgender community in the state's teaching sector during the upcoming recruitment. That was decided in the February 2022. Then Railway Board has in RTI the information was obtained that as per information obtained from the Railway Board under RTI, nearly 6,149 transgender senior citizens above 60 years had availed concession in passenger space. Railway has granted 40% concession fare to transgenders above 60. परत महत्वाचा मुद्दा आहे, कारण त्यांनी आता सांगताना सांगितली 60 वर्षाचे कुठे फिरणार आहेत. Some questions which may ask, before asking questions I am answering that questions. Whether transgender can adopt the child? Yes, definitely there is no bar, subject to legal requirement. Whether man can marry to man? Yes, there is no hurdle in either in Hindu Act, because Hindu Act says 2 Hindus, Special Marriage Act says 2 persons, so there is no gender mention in the act. And apart from that, there is a judgment of Shakti Vahini versus Union of India, wherein Supreme Court held that an individual has the constitutional freedom to marry whoever he chooses. Before conclusion, I just pointed out only one hierarchy of pre-legal aid services. At district level, there is a district legal aid services authorities. At taluka level, there are taluka samitis. At state level, there are Maharashtra Legal Aid Services Authority, and at national level, there are National Legal Aid Services Authorities, who are there to give free and competent legal aid to various persons of the society, which includes female, child, unorganized sectors, the persons, arrested persons, the persons who are in custody, and the persons whose income is up to rupees 3 lakhs. So my intention to mention this for any queries regarding the legal, and we are organizing at least twice in a year awareness program in respect of in particular this on this particular topic. या विषयावर एक सेमिनार म्हणण्यापेक्षा एक अवेअरनेस प्रोग्राम आयोजित केला जातो की राईट्स काय आहेत, व्हॉट आर द फॅसिलिटीज प्रोव्हाइडेड टू द ट्रान्सजेंडर्स, व्हॉट लॉस इज ऑन पर्टिक्युलर ॲस्पेक्ट्स. आय एम जस्ट मेन्शनिंग इट, हे सांगतो याच्यासाठी कारण काही जर प्रश्न असतील तर ठाण्यामध्ये एक सेपरेट बिल्डिंग आहे ज्याला आपण जाऊन लिगल एड बिल्डिंग विचारू शकता. फर्स्ट फ्लोअरला ऑफिस आहे. ॲक्सेसेबल टू एव्हरीबडी. इट इज नॉट की कोणाला बंधन आहे तिथे येण्यात. इट इज ॲक्सेसेबल टू एव्हरीबडी. तिथे येऊन आपण आपल्या काही क्वेरीज असतील तर सांगू शकता, विचारू शकता. तिकडे रिटेनर लॉयर आहेत हु आर देअर टू हेल्प ऑल द पीपल्स हु कम्स विदिन द कॅटेगरी as mentioned by me. Thank you very much for calling me. If any questions, I don't think the time permits us to ask any questions. Okay, then how I to reply? Through mail only? For mail, just write down my mail. Have I given you my? Okay. And thank you very much. Before conclude, I must congratulate the organizer because this is a very sensitive but the most neglected subject which has been taken up by the organizer. ही सुरुवात आहे, थोडीशी काडी पेटलेली आहे, पूर्ण आग लागल्याशिवाय मजा येणार नाही. आणि माझं वैयक्तिक मत सांगतो की हे जे हे सांगायचीच वेळ आली नाही पाहिजे की यांना हे फॅसिलिटी द्या. दे शुड बी द पार्ट ऑफ मेन स्ट्रीम. जसे आपण सगळे आहोत तसेच असायला हवेत. तो दिवस लवकरात लवकर यावा म्हणजे ह्या सगळ्या कॉन्फरन्सेस ज्या आहेत ह्या बंद होतील. थँक्यू व्हेरी मच. थँक्यू व्हेरी मच.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your expertise with us. Now I'll quickly present the vote of thanks so that we can disperse.